This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and oh my God, finally, it's the Blackberry Passport. Now, Research in Motion, now going by the name of Blackberry, released this phone several months ago as an unlocked phone, not on any US carrier. And it was almost, a get your attention kind of stunt. They've been doing a lot of those things. Their CEO says some pretty outrageous things, and it's pretty outrageous to make a nearly square phone, isn't it? But surprise, now it's actually available on AT&T. AT&T and BlackBerry have had a good relationship for some time. The Classic is also available now on AT&T. Anyway, today's the day it's available. And you know what? I like it. And we're going to look at it now. Well, here it is. Probably the weirdest phone you're going to see for a while. This is the BlackBerry Passport, so named because it's about the size of a passport. You know, the kind of thing you use to go from country to country. 4.5-inch square display, QWERTY keyboard. Almost, I would like to say it's not BlackBerry without the QWERTY keyboard, but obviously they've made some touchscreen-only devices, and where they really do still shine, I think, is with the hardware keyboard. And we'll talk about that a lot more, too. What can I say? BlackBerry was floundering, so they started to do things that were kind of outrageous, kind of different. And sometimes it's the best thing a company can do, right? If they keep doing the same old thing over and over again and it's not working, try whatever works. So they came out with this absolutely bizarre yet somehow lovable phone. We didn't think we were ever going to see this on a US carrier, but now it's available on AT&T in the United States. So is the Blackberry Classic, which is a more conventional and affordable sort of BlackBerry of old sort of device. $199 on contract, $649 full retail, and of course there are the usual payment plan options that are available too. It's a good-looking device for the price. We've got our stainless steel over here. It's clean, it's modern. Gorilla Glass 3 protecting the front. Up top, we have the headphone jack, and there's the power button, which is quite a reach, but honest to goodness, I don't think many people are going to be using this with one hand anyway, and you don't really need the power button to turn it on, and we'll show you a whole lot of interesting things you can do, well, to turn the phone on without actually ever using that power button. This side here, we got our volume controls and our mute button right there. Micro USB on the bottom. Speakers as well, and this supports USB host, by the way, so we actually tested this with a USB on-the-go adapter and a flash drive using the built-in file manager, and lo and behold, that works. What about the back side of the phone? Battery is sealed inside. This is a rubbery, soft touch finish. It shows fingerprint oil some, nothing too horrible. The usual BlackBerry logo there. I like the feel of it. Something that's this big, you want it to be grippy, you want it to be kind of soft touch. This area up here is separated by our little silver line right there. This part pops off, and that grants you access to the nano SIM and to the micro SD card slot. It's a little pull-off thing right there. And there it is. You've got the SD card slot compatible with cards up to 128 gigs, and there's our SIM card slot. Again, battery is sealed inside. The camera here, when BlackBerry started getting with the program and making their BlackBerry 10 devices more modern, touchscreen, nice, all that sort of thing, the specs often lag behind. Not anymore. They also threw in at the time what some of the best specs you would find on a flagship phone. So we have a 13 megapixel camera here, 5-element f2 lens, backside illuminated sensor on board, optical image stabilization. I wouldn't be surprised if this is the same Sony sensor that's used in the LG G3, for example. LED flash right there. It takes really nice pictures, and you can do, your Instagram-y / Hasselblad square photos, or you can do normal widescreen photos if you want with that camera. Front side, we have a 2 megapixel camera that can shoot up to 720p video. The back camera does 1080p video maximum. Now, it's a wacky world where all sizes, you never know, they just might work for people. So here's a phone. This is a Samsung Galaxy Note. Now, I was a proponent of the Note back in the days of the original Note, when people said, who in the heck is ever going to use such a giant phone, right? So you get the idea, seeing them side by side. A lot of people do use the Note. In fact, of course, the Note is going to be narrow, but it's also going to be a lot taller. So for those of you who don't have tall pockets, it can be a problem. And I've actually had my Note flop out of my pocket here. So there's a difference in width. Not as bad as you might think. Now for hand comfort, this is too wide for, I think, most anybody. This works for me, for people with smaller hands. Even people say that this is too small. But like I said, you never know what's going to work, so square can be okay. So I have pretty big hands. I'm almost 6 feet tall. I won't say that I can absolutely palm a basketball, but I can hold some of the biggest devices. I can hold this. This works. Can I do much of anything when I'm holding it though? No, I have to use my other hand to actually interact with the device. So those of you who are into one-handed devices, clearly something that's this wide is not for you. It's also pretty heavy too. At 196 grams, it's almost 7 ounces, so you'll feel the weight in your pocket. Anyway, where you're really going to end up using this is two-handed, obviously. Then it becomes a much more natural thing. If you're adverse to two-handed, say, oh well, this one isn't for me. Two-handed obviously is a benefit when you've got a QWERTY keyboard here. So, gosh, remember those? Man, it's been a while. Now, some of you are longtime BlackBerry aficionados, and you probably still have a BlackBerry that has a hardware keyboard, but for the non-BlackBerry lover out there, this guy is kind of a thing of the past. And you know what? It's really, really quite good. It's a 3-row keyboard here, not 4-row, which is interesting. But you get a software keyboard line up here up top that fills in the missing blanks kind of intelligently. It tries to guess on. Anyway, before we go into the software, the usual waterfall-shaped sculpted keys, as you can see right there. Very tactile, very nice. The space bar in the middle, sometimes I have a little trouble getting used to that being there and nested in between my bottom row of keys, but I found I type very quickly on this, especially not being the greatest touch screen typist in the world. I'm always kind of just staring at it from me going before I type. With this, it's just pretty natural because we're all used to QWERTY keyboards on our desks, and it's a lot of muscle memory here. So nice, positive, tactile, clicky. It's not a bad thing at all. Now say I want to actually type something. So here I'm in the messaging application. You can see immediately I have a software row up here, which includes your shift key, some punctuation, letters and symbols right there. So you can see I get my word predictions here, which are generally speaking pretty good. And if I need numbers, there's my numbers right there. The usual BlackBerry thing where you can double tap to insert a space is there. And even more interestingly, this keyboard is actually a touchpad of sorts. Instead of having the separate little optical trackpad like BlackBerries of old, you can now double tap on the keyboard and it brings up cursor control. You can also do selection and all that sort of thing. Now, some of the things that you're going to do with this are going to take a while to remember, and that's the challenge with Blackberry OS. And I know you Blackberry lovers are going to say, oh, this isn't true, you're an idiot if you can't remember all these things. But there are a lot of shortcuts and tricks in Blackberry OS in general. They're just going to take some memory. So for somebody who's used to an Android phone or an iPhone or something like that, they're going to probably be like, well, I don't know if I'm going to use all those things. But the double tap here works pretty well. The context sensitivity is good. One thing that I find though, and I don't have particularly huge fingers and I have trimmed my nails, is that I do actually manage to touch and hit these often by accident. Particularly somehow I manage to use the shift key an awful lot, which can be really annoying if you're doing something that is case sensitive. But all in all, a pretty good job, and the context row up here is a great idea, even if it is easy to accidentally hit. Now let's talk about the applications that are here. We've got a lot of social networking stuff. There you're pretty well covered with BlackBerry OS 10.3, which we're running here. We have a YouTube application. Well, that's really just a shortcut to the mobile YouTube site. Foursquare, Adobe Reader, Evernote's on here, works just fine. We have a file manager built in, Box, connection to Dropbox, NFC tag reader, phone, obviously, some AT&T applications, their family maps and stuff like that. Let's go to the first page. Look, Amazon App Store. What a brilliant idea, right? Because BlackBerry 10.3 devices can run Android apps, and you no longer have to convert things manually yourself. The device will handle it. Now, this is not a Google Play sanctioned device. You'll never actually get official Google Play on here directly. But the Amazon App Store offers about 300,000 applications. That's still not all the apps obviously available for Android. There are many more than that, but it's a nice start. Plus, you got Blackberry App World for you. And you can see the selection here. This is not going to beat Android or iOS, so you app junkies are just, keep that in mind. It might not be for you. We have Instagram-style clients right here. Obviously, Evernote's featured big time. A couple of games, Modern Combat. More games. Not so much yet in terms of streaming video players, your Netflix, your Hulu, and all that sort of thing. It really depends on just, well, how well BlackBerry OS does, I guess, as to how soon, or if ever, developers are going to jump on doing that. Now there's another thing called Snap. It's an application that you're going to have to sideload on the device, and you're going to have to trust the folks at Snap with your Google login, and user ID and password. But anyway, what it does is it basically replicates the Google Play application for Android on this device here. So you have access to your Google Play account, and you can download even more Android apps. So you're not as limited as you are with Amazon, but you have to be okay and figure out how to sideload. There are instruction sheets that you can find on the web on how to do that, to sideload Snap onto here to get that going. So it's yet another possibility, and Android applications have come a long way. Got Comixology over here. I actually downloaded that from the Amazon App Store. That's an Android application. It works just fine. Pulse, PBS Video, which does work for streaming PBS videos for those of you who like PBS. And here we are in Comixology. Now here's where the square screen really works pretty nicely, is for something like reading comics. Big, ample size screen, 1400 by 1400 pixel resolution here. You can hold it sideways if you want, and Blackberry actually recommends that when you're doing something like scrolling, because this can become a virtual scroll pad. We'll show you that with the web browser, but for something like this, I think it works just as fine holding it like so. So there you go, native Android application running actually on the Passport. But where the square screen doesn't work out so well is for something like video, which is typically 16 by 9 widescreen. So we'll watch our Moto 360 review here.
Nothing I would complain
so
about
here we have
like
big old black bar areas right here. So you're not
of RAM and 4 gigs of storage.
well,
The 4 gigs of storage.
using your screen real estate really wisely there. So granted, compared to the size of it, one of the old iPhones 3.5-inch size, or one of the old Blackberries, you're not losing anything there. But given the overall size of the screen, it's clearly not optimized for video. But what is impressive are those speakers. I mean, wow, listen again.
Storage, you put apps on here which are really widget extensions from apps that you...
That sounds just like me. That's nice, loud, rich, and full. So really impressive speakers on here. And just swiping back from our app palette to back here, you can see how multitasking works on Blackberry. If you're already familiar with Blackberry OS 10, then you know how this rolls. But it's pretty cool. So you get a little card basically for every app that you have running, so you can switch through and go back to them pretty quickly and easy. Kind of animates and fills in with the last thing that you were doing in that application. It'll even start splitting these and dividing these up quite a bit, and you can have a lot rolling if you want, and say you actually don't want this. You know, you're not going to be using it for a while. You feel like tidying up your memory, whatever it is, you can do that. And if you swipe once more to the side, you've got your universal inbox here, which is pretty cool. Granted, it can get cluttered with an awful lot of things, but you've got your text message notifications, your email notification, your calendar stuff, your welcome messages, all of that in one handy place. So it's a pretty nicely done operating system. And, you know, yes, there are some perhaps learning curve complexity issues there, but I don't think it's anything that terrible. Settings here, logically grouped into different categories. I don't think anybody's going to have any problem with that. That has not changed very much since Blackberry OS 10 came out. Easy to use as ever. But while we're here, let's take a look at some of the customization that you can do. So here we are in settings under what they call advanced interaction. Here you can set it to wake up when you lift it, flip it to mute it over, flip it on its face to go into power saving mode. Hold it to stay awake. Also, you can set it in display settings to wake it up just by giving a big swipe from the bottom to the top. So again, you don't have to use the power button under all those situations. Not bad at all. It's always fast, it's always fluid. We have a Qualcomm Snapdragon quad-core CPU. It's a Snapdragon 801 clocked at 2.2 gigahertz. That has Adreno 330 graphics. Nothing surprising there. We've seen Windows phones and Android phones with the same horsepower inside. Granted, it's not the 805, but the performance difference between the 801 and the 805 is not super duper wild. 3 gigs of RAM here, 32 gigs of internal storage. That's pretty ample. Again, we have a micro SD card slot as well. Dual band Wi-Fi, 802.11 AB, GN, and AC, NFC as well, and Bluetooth 4.0. Of course, there's a GPS inside here, and the usual accelerometer, proximity sensor, all that sort of stuff. So in terms of hardware, it's pretty darn capable as well. Battery life on this thing, absolutely very impressive. 3450 milliamp battery sealed inside here. I could not kill this in a day with heavy use. And I mean 24 hours, of course. I slept at night. I didn't do much with it. I did put it face down to be power saving sort of thing. But really, even if you're on the go and using this heavily, this should last you all day, which is pretty darn impressive. Now here's where the square screen really does shine. When you're looking at a web page, right, this feels much more like a natural view if you're looking at desktop web pages. And probably if you got yourself a cutting-edge big screen smartphone, it's because you actually do want to see desktop web pages and not just little textified mobilized pages. This is pretty darn cool. Scrolling speeds, pinch zoom, no problem. Also supports Adobe Flash Player, which is a pretty darn rare thing these days for mobile browsers. Now, granted, HTML5 video, and YouTube is serving that up, so it becomes less of an issue. But for those of you who want to try to get Amazon Prime to play on this through your web browser, you know, if Amazon doesn't block the device, you might be good to go there with using it for that sort of thing. So lovely there. We also get Docs to Go for your Office suite, certainly if you're doing something like spreadsheets. I mean, that's a much nicer view of a spreadsheet than you have on a widescreen device, isn't it, right there? It's nice. It's good for productivity. It's great for messaging as well. So really, if video playing isn't your thing, it's pretty darn good. For photo viewing, actually, it's pretty nice as well. And these are some pictures we took with the camera. Really very nice. Lots of detail there, even as I zoom in, and very nice punchy colors. In fact, the screen itself is also a very nice colorful display. And it does a pretty good job of capturing lighting changes. This was actually under LED lighting that changed every so often. That was a green LED ambiance light that happened. It actually picked it up, and then we went over to a warm tone. And here's a colorful scene. Lots of detail, even as we zoom in pretty far, very sharp, very punchy, very clear. Really like the camera on this, and the 1080p video isn't bad either. Well, there is a dialer that no matter how big your fingers are, I don't care, you're not going to have any trouble using this at all. Absolutely big and huge, and of course you have quick access to your contacts as well and your recent calls. How's call quality on this? Very good. Blackberry makes very good voice devices. 4 microphones on this thing, which means outgoing voice quality really is very good. And the earpiece even uses a technology where it uses the proximity sensor to say, hey, you moved your ear a little bit further away, I'm going to make the earpiece a little bit louder. And then if you move your head closer, well, it's going to make it quieter again. So great voice phone. Lastly, there's something called Blackberry Blend. That's BlackBerry's version of, say, continuity on something like iOS, where if you put the Blend application on your Mac or your PC and have it running, you can see notifications that are coming up here for your emails, your text messages, all that sort of thing. The nice thing is when you quit the application, that device won't be bogged down with messages, or for privacy's sake, you don't want other people seeing your messages at the office once you're at home, that sort of thing. For those of you who like to have every device in the room bing-bonging, well, you might be annoyed that you have to keep the app running, but that's not really a big deal. And it works as advertised. It's pretty good, and also you can transfer files to and from your Mac or PC with it. So that's the Blackberry Passport, the one that's available on AT&T, but we're still looking at the same hardware here. And honestly, I was so pleasantly surprised. It's just once you start using it and you get over the whole idea of going poo-poo on square phones, it's actually a delightful product to use, particularly for web browsing, for looking at office documents. Anything that's good square, even for looking at pictures, is fine. Like I said, it's not for video editing. Obviously, if you're really deep into the Google ecosystem, an Android phone is going to be better for you. If you need everything Google to get your work done, that's the truth. If all of your family members are on iOS devices and they're iMessaging and all that sort of thing, and you've got family plans, sharing apps and stuff like that, well, there's nothing that's going to probably pull you away strongly enough to stop it. But if you're pretty open to operating systems and you don't have a great desire to be an app junkie, then this could certainly work for you. And if you want to just get work done and your days are spent messaging, social networking, using Docs to Go, the Office suite on here, using the web browser, it works quite well. Just have wide pockets, folks. So that's the Blackberry Passport. As I said, available now on AT&T. There's also the unlocked version for your GSM, folks. Sorry, Verizon and Sprint, not for you guys. Anyway, it's different, certainly. And in this day and age where everything goes in terms of size, I certainly won't discount this. It's a handful. It's more of a two-handed device. It might look a little funny next to your head, but anything short of a full-size tablet these days, people put against their heads, let's face it. It's interesting, you know, the caveats. BlackBerry has kind of fallen by the wayside in the last several years. There aren't as many apps available. The Amazon App Store helps with that Android app compatibility. Still a bit of an effort to get stuff from Google Play on here. But for those of you who aren't app addicts and aren't into watching a whole lot of widescreen video, it's a really charming device. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to hit that like button and read our full written review on mobiletechreview.com.